Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of Tech Talks on CxO Global TV. CxO Global Forum is a knowledge sharing platform for all C levels and key thought leaders across the globe. We take massive pride in contributing to the knowledge economy. And when we talk about disruption, innovation, and internationalization of corporates in this day and age, technology is a key determining factor, which is why we started this initiative with one of our members, Mr. Hasan Zuberi, who has joined us today as well. He's from EliteVad in Dubai. And we thought that we'd disseminate more information for all of you regarding what's hot and happening in technology these days. Today, we've got Ryan joining us from BYOS, and he's going to be talking to us about secure connectivity for the remote and roaming workforce. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Anza.
I know you've joined us all the way from Canada, and it's quite early for you in the morning, but we appreciate the effort.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate that.
Right. Ryan, so let's cut to the chase. When we're talking about the workplace post-pandemic, what the past year and a half has taught us that a lot has changed in work culture and work ethics, right? So when we talk about the remote work and working from home, it has become the new normal, but that in itself entails some risks, because people are often connecting from public networks or shared networks. What exactly are the risks that a business poses, that are posed to a business?
Yeah, so I think there are three main things that keeps any business owner or CISO up at night, and it really comes down to data leaks, intrusions, and ransomware. And so when you combine those three things and all of your employees working maybe from their home office or a coffee shop or wherever, those connections from untrusted Wi-Fi networks add a level of risk that is quantifiable from a standpoint of ransomware, but sometimes unquantifiable and difficult to manage when you look at the overall picture of, who in my network is connecting, where are they connecting from, what kind of access do they have? Am I able to control their traffic? Am I able to shut them off the network if I do find that they have been compromised, and so on and so forth? So that's really the risk that we're seeing when employees connect to networks that their employers can't control.
Absolutely. But, and Ryan, it's very important that we also take into account the fact that, people are always on the go as soon as work from home started, because obviously being at home, not everybody is comfortable with it. So I've seen a lot of employees who either go to co-working spaces, or even if they're working from home, they're probably connecting or via their cell phone, 4G, 5G connections in their phone. And they're often shared networks, right? So when you talk about data leaks in particular, we know that a lot of business solutions do offer encryption, and they've taken certain security measures in place. However, it was interesting when I was reading my BYOS that you mentioned microsegmentation. Now, it is a buzzword these days. What exactly does microsegmentation mean?
So by definition, microsegmentation is a method of creating zones that isolate devices and workloads onto their own individual protected island, so to say. So traditionally, when we look at networks, they have been segmented into larger zones. So you'd say Office A has this zone, Office B has this zone, Data Center C has this zone, and all my public network connections come from this zone. But what microsegmentation says is every device, every endpoint should be on its own zone that can be controlled and managed by any administrator at any time. And so when you add microsegmentation into your network, you no longer get into this scenario where you say, okay, this ward in this hospital has been compromised. All 1,000 devices are down. You get into a scenario where one or two devices might be compromised, but the integrity of the whole network can still be maintained because all those assets are microsegmented. And that's the premise, going from a macro view down to the smallest common denominator, which is a network node or an endpoint.
Right. And, when you talk about the BIOS gateway, now it has, you said that it has taken complexity out of security, right? But since you mentioned microsegmentation, um, how has it simplified things? How has, security been simplified?
Well, so there's three main things that the BIOS micro gateway aims to do. And the first is to make security simple. So the product itself is plug and play. And what that means is it is network and endpoint agnostic. So it can work in any network and it can work with any type of endpoint, whether that's a laptop or a tablet, a medical device, an industrial controller, a legacy Windows XP device.
Okay, even with legacy and IoT devices, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what the endpoint is, and it actually doesn't matter what the network is. As long as there's an internet-enabled connection, BIOS can add network security to the edge. And so we're taking the security that typically lives on the perimeter in the data center and adding it to the edge of every endpoint. And that's really how we make security simple. You plug it in, it works.
Brilliant. But it's interesting, Ryan, that you did mention legacy and embedded IoT devices. And for most business owners who are not experts in this domain, they assume that data or security breaches can only happen through, let's say, tablets, mobile devices, or through laptops or PCs, right? But nobody predicted that maybe wearables could pose a security threat or so on and so forth. Could you give us some examples of how this could pose a threat to businesses?
Yeah, so oftentimes when an attacker gets into a network and is doing network reconnaissance as their first phase of exploratory activities to say, how can I get in and how can I move around, right? They'll look for the lowest hanging fruit. And oftentimes, the initial compromise is through a user, clicking on a link. But then what happens is they go around and look for the devices that they can control and manipulate. And when you get to a legacy device running an outdated operating system, those operating systems have unpatched vulnerabilities because Microsoft announced late last year that the Windows 7 was becoming unsupported. So they've stopped adding new patches to Windows 7, and any devices running Windows 7, are still vulnerable. And so attacker gets in the network, they take control of the Windows 7 machines. They use those as their command and control posts to maintain that foothold in the network. And then they can do whatever they want. They can go dormant for a while to evade any software protections you might have installed, or they can continue to propagate laterally. And so what we've done is we've created a number of different products that can serve different scenarios. And so if you have legacy devices that are wired through Ethernet, you can plug in our industrialized micro gateway through Ethernet, just like it normally would connect to the switch, except now BIOS becomes the node on the network, and that Windows 7 machine is micro-segmented. And so if it becomes infected, you can shut off traffic. You have threat management capabilities. You can actually push the same policies, the same security policies to that Windows 7 machine as you would to any other laptop or tablet corporate device that's in your fleet. So the same thing goes for BYOD. I don't care, Anza, what laptop you're using. As an administrator, here's your micro gateway. There's your security on a stick. Plug it in. If your computer breaks down, you're in Dubai, go buy a new computer, plug in your micro gateway, and it works. And that's it.
Wow. So you actually are adding that added layer of security, and then there's a contingency in place as well.
Yeah.
Right. But Ryan, here's another thing that's food for thought. When we talk about such solutions, right, and especially investing in something that is more tangible, like the BIOS device, people assume, and most business owners assume, that it's a luxury that is probably available only to big corporations or those, because obviously costs of setting up or investment would be very, very high. So startups and small and medium enterprises often think that they're deprived of such solutions. Do you have any maybe flexible payment plans or any personalized solutions for smaller companies or startups?
Well, so we're a startup as well. And we actually, for security, only use our product because from the way that our CEO founded the company and all of his experience in, hacking, going to Black Hat and DEF CON and all the hacking conferences across the world, he realized that, antivirus wasn't enough. And because of the advancements that the major computer manufacturers have made to make the operating systems more hardened and resistant to those types of attacks, you see now Microsoft and HP and Apple all coming out with additional protections built into the machine. So they're a lot better than they used to be. But when you have, employees, 5, 10, 50, 100, maybe working from their home office, you're not going to buy Cisco routers and all that stuff for your employees. You might look to a solution like BIOS where you can say, okay, everyone has their own computer, but what's the one unified way I can have them on my network that's micro-segmented and protected? And that can be BIOS. And, we're flexible in terms of the size of deployment. It's very simple to install, so there's not a lot of overhead. You don't have to be a Cisco certified network engineer to deploy our solution. Zero touch deployment, plug it in, it works.
Really lovely. And that really simplifies things, right? Ryan, but the thing is that for now, yes, we have the pandemic and a lot of work culture has changed. What happens when, let's say a lot of people get immunized and slowly and gradually we do move back to life as we once knew it, right? And people start working from offices again. So if you have 50 employees, does that mean one has to again invest in 50 BIOS devices, or can there be a unified solution as well?
Well, that's the greatest thing. I mean, these products, the BIOS Micro Gateway, it's portable. So you take it wherever you go. And in fact, we actually built the product pre-pandemic, right? And the real pain was on public Wi-Fi networks like that of Starbucks and that of the airport Wi-Fi, right? And so
Right, makes sense.
you take security with you wherever you go. BIOS stands for Bring Your Own Security. And so, I think we're well positioned for when the world opens back up. And the the best analogy I can give you, right, is BIOS is like wearing a mask. When you go into a public place now, you're going to wear a mask because who knows what Jim or Sally has sitting beside you. So you put your mask on and you're protected that way. And BIOS is your analogous solution for your mask on public or Wi-Fi that you can't control, or you can't be sure that, you know, Anza's cell phone has been compromised. And so that's the best analogy I can give.
Absolutely. So what's next in store for BIOS? Like, where do you guys see yourself, like 5 years, 10 years down the line? I mean, are we expecting any more advances? Is there going to be an evolution of the device itself? What's next? What can we expect?
Yeah, so our R&D team is always working hard. The ultimate vision of the company is to be embedded inside of all devices. And so we're working on, you know, having our software be able to service even the lowest power, the lowest cost microcontrollers in the world. So you could have network security embedded inside of the endpoint for any type of endpoint. And so when you get to that level, you know, it'll still maintain the same microsegmentation because we advocate that, you know, you put our software on a different core than the main CPU. And so, yeah, that's where we're going. Hopefully, you know, down the line, 5-7 years, we'll always have that legacy business, but embedded is really where the vision of the company is.
Absolutely, and we wish you all the best for it. So, Ryan, unfortunately, we're running out of time. But what I would like for you to tell us as an ending note would be that in terms of, because you've had a very broad vision when you, you know, while working with BIOS, what would be your best piece of advice for people that are watching today when it comes to security and staying secure online?
I think it starts with the fundamentals. You know, when we look at security, there's a lot of basic things that can be done that can bring the security posture up to a baseline that is better than where it is today. You know, using complex passwords, not reusing passwords, making sure that you know, you're shutting off services or devices that aren't in use. You're not leaving ports open. Those types of very simple. You're changing the administrative password and username on any device so that, you know, root access is impossible to get or highly unlikely. So those are the basic things that I would suggest people take steps towards. And then when you look at, you know, how you're segmenting your network, ensuring that you put everything onto its own microsegment so you can control and have visibility. And that's a secondary step, I would say. But yeah, just taking care of the fundamentals and going from there.
Right. Sounds lovely. Thank you so much, Ryan, for your time and taking out time, especially this morning. Hasan, thank you so much for once again coordinating this. It has been a learning experience. And ladies and gentlemen, the world is progressing around us at a very, very fast pace as hackers are getting smarter. Our security solutions are getting smarter. So you can literally plug and play solutions like BIOS and ensure end-to-end security for all your users. Take care of yourselves. Please keep us updated. Any comments or feedback for next time. If you want to get in touch with the team at BIOS or Ryan, we've left a link in the comments and you can explore the solutions. Up until next time, here's me signing off. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Anza.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye. Bye.